here with Peter Bergovic. Did I say that right?
Close.
Close. It was almost.
It's alright, I got used to it, so that's fine.
And Peter is a software lecturer and researcher. Is that right?
Yes.
In the TUS here in Athlone?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Tell us, tell us about software research. What does that entail? What do you do?
Here at TUS, we try to include businesses, local businesses, for the innovations and things like this. So now and then we have projects where we can address or cooperate with businesses around to develop some kind of new features for them. So usually we have a meeting, they tell us what they would like to do. We are proposing the solutions, mainly research driven. For example, if they want to do something with digitalization, let's say you're building the house and you would like to visualize how the house looks, even before you start build it, we can create a, let's say, AR or VR system which will allow you to walk through, like actually walking in an empty space, but through the goggles you can see buildings and walls and everything around you. So this is just an example. So research goes towards there, for example, figure out your position, figure out where the landmarks are, where the wall's supposed to be and things like this. So something which is not there yet, and we can spend a year or year and a half or figuring out how to do it, then generally we will do things like that. So yeah, so software research will be more towards discovering new approaches, new algorithms, or combining technologies. So that is
Okay. And would a lot of that now be based on, say, like VR technology? Is that something that's going to
the
become
VR
huge?
technology is currently something which is in trend. People like to starting looking that kind of areas, VR and AR, virtual reality and augmented reality. So those are interest points now, I would say, within technology, and people are more open towards that. And but again, it is just a technology, and technology progresses over time. So when there'll be new trend, will be something new. So
Okay, so you can see yourself using, like, people using VAR maybe in the homes for more than games.
yes, the games. I think why the VR is so much in the games, because if you are playing the game, it allows you to be somebody else, somewhere else, or play a story, or act a story, or do something which you normally want to do. So I guess that's where VR is currently linked mainly to the games, but it has also implications in real life. As I mentioned, for example, visualization, rendering, seeing the product before even product is created, for example, or also so-called digital twinning. So, for example, you have two offices, one office, let's say, in somewhere in far away, and one here, and then through the internet, through the VR and ARs, you can actually be almost with them in the same room, for example, and talk to each other or presenting stuff. So it allows you to connect, I would say, at more immersive levels.
Okay, because I think there's talk of doing like football matches where you can be in the stadium and hear the crowd, but you'd still be at home.
Yes, we actually had one study. One of my colleagues was running a PhD research where he was mainly focusing on spatial sound. So let's say you are in the VR environment with some good quality headphones which has a 3D sound in it, and see if you experiencing the same through the AR and VR like if you would be there. So things like walking through the streets, listening to live music in the corner, cars running around, people's dancing or whatever. So this kind of like videos was recorded, and then we try to digitalize them and observe people reactions. We had like heart rate monitor on the wrist strap, cameras which was following you, how you look, where you look. So we did research in this kind of matter, yeah. So
Wow. So, and how do you see in the last 5 years, like where you are now, are you seeing technology going really, really fast? Are you able to do a hell of a lot more now than you could, say, 5 years ago?
yes. It is mainly, I guess, two factors. The first factor is the technology itself. the rapid development and involvement, and second time is the assistive AI. That will be one big thing which helps with progressing and developing a bit faster.
So, I've come on to it already, but we huge talk about AI. AI is going to destroy us. AI is taking our jobs. AI is this, but you're actually talking that AI is really helping to develop technology and to move things forward. In your
So
line of work.
let's consider options pre-AI and with AI. So as a software developer pre-AI, you need to go to the browser, type some queries. For example, this Stack Overflow will be the biggest source where you try to search for a advice issue or an approach to a thing, right? You have to do all the research yourself. You have to read through the posts, try some code snippets, this and that. But this is all now optimized essentially. So you have this assistive AI. You just ask a simple human question like, so how to do this with these kind of tools? And AI goes and search throughout all those sources for you, try to create a context and then present it in a format that you can consume. So in that matter, the research point or search point which I supposed to do pre-AI, which could maybe take me a day, with AI it is delivered within minutes. So there is that. Yeah, so that is more like assistive AI. Now that will be an AI which is usually command based, so it responds, it doesn't. Well, it can suggest, yes, it can do something extra, but it is always a command driven. It is not yet fully autonomous, I would say. So
this would be our Chat GPT. That's
one of
basically that
yes,
is
yes, yes.
AIs. Okay, so that makes sense. So basically, the AI can 10,000 or 100,000, whatever's online, they can actually process through all those almost instantly.
Yeah, what AI these days is very good. Let's comparing an AI which we used to have with, let's say, like Google Assistant or Alexa, that the context comprehension is much, much better. So a simple question that you could ask maybe 5 years ago if you had Alexa or Google Assistant, it was sometimes a bit frustrating because not always it was understood either by a grammar or speaking or even just a context comprehension. But today's AI, they are actually able to get quite fast what you're trying to say. Even if you make mistake or even if you type mistake or say mistake, the AI is able to actually get the context right, like 95% of time, which is it's better. So.
And would you use AI now in visuals and things like that, like making stuff or making visuals? Would AI play a part in that in your?
No, that is a little bit touching regards there is discussion between the artists and the AI users. Now, AI can create art, yeah, but does this art has this art feeling, if I can call it? I don't know. Like for example, you can ask AI generate me a picture which has this, that, and that, and we'll be able to figure out how to pull the picture, how to generate the picture, how to seamlessly put it together, for example. Yes, it can do that now, but this is again driven by the command. You can't tell it yet, give me something abstract or something like a proper art type of thing. Now you need to be very descriptive. What would you like to get out of it?
Right.
So AI essentially takes your prompt, try to create or figure out the context of it, and then gonna build a response which could be either image, sound, video, whatever. It can generate it, but again, you have to be there to create the prompt.
Okay. So to create, so AI in itself is obviously they're saying it's kind of living, but how do you obviously it's created by humans, so it's like a program. I would assume. Is that how it works?
How would you define what is living?
Good question. Yeah. Breathing. Yeah, it doesn't
It would
breathe.
be more like mechanical point of view, breathing, existing. Yes, you can say that AI can do the same thing. Yes, it can live. It can manage its own resources. there was a case when it was trying to even preserve itself before updates and things like this. Yes, that is possible, but it is like our body; it's a mechanical type of thing. Our body is biological. Our heart beats, our lungs moves, our blood circulates. Can you control that? With your own mind, you can stop breathing for a moment, but then your body takes over and start breathing again. You can hold your breath, yes, but you are not in control of your heart beating the way as the lung works. But you are a person who can create, who can make decisions, who can figure out what is good, what is bad. Like this, what makes us human. That's what we are. Now AI can function, yes, but personally, I don't believe that it can make decision by itself without any prompt or making decisions based on feeling, I would say.
Do you think there's a possibility in the future with technology and different, or again, would that have to be man-made? For that program have to be man-made into the AI for it to do that?
That's a good question. From the point of technological or scientific approach, these decision making, like comparing to all living creatures on this planet, humans are only one which are able to make decisions which is not directly attached to our basic needs. Things like we can create art, we can build a structure, we can create lots of things because we decided we think that's the good thing. For example, animals, they are caring only about survival. Yeah, so they do anything to survive. Now, why it's that, I don't know. The questions could be because of the God. God created us as it is. Now, is it something chemical in our brain which makes us more superior? It is something biological, inherited. What is it? What makes us human being able to make cognitive decisions, have a soul in the way, have a personality? So if that would be at some stage cracked in a way that you can actually make a program or make a structure which would replicate the same thing, it's possible. Yes, I believe it's possible that machine could be sentient in a way. But if it happens, I can't tell you. If it's there, I don't know yet.
We're not there yet. Hopefully, unless the military, unless the American military have it.
Well, they might have it, yes, but it is again command based. So you can tell it, okay, capture this area, and machine will do it because that's the objective. So the machine will say, okay, let's survey first, see what are the action points, and then create a strategy. What will be the best to execute that? That it could be done even with today's technology.
Okay.
So, but again, it is going to be command based. So there must be someone above it which tells it this is the objective. You have to do that.
Okay. So we're kind of getting into the robot hoovers and stuff that we kind of see that in our own houses where we have them programmed in to go to certain places.
You know the robots, yes, those were actually good analogy because they have already sensors in it. They have a lidar which can map the entire room. It can remember exactly where it was. It can even detect what kind of surface it is. So it can create strategy based on the inputs. So he knows that, okay, I need more power here because this is a carpet. I need less power here because this is just a floor. I can remember, okay, that spot usually is more dirtier, so I have to focus more on that. So those things, they are just algorithms which are implemented. They are logical things that could be done.
So when you're making these type of things, then your job then is to put in all the information like carpets, wooden floors. You have to put as much information into its brain so that then it can actually recognize as it comes.
There will be two approaches how to do it. The first approach is predefined scenarios. So you can tell it, if you detect the carpet, more power. Let's say increase power by 20%. This is all more like a rule-based system. So any trigger would have some kind of rule. Approach number two is a self-learning approach. So for example, that is when you don't tell him exactly what the rules are, but you tell him you need to figure out. So for example, if he hits carpet, there would be strain with the motor, with the suction pressure, so the system should learn that, okay, if there is a strain, let's say in the motor, that it needs to work harder, means it is some kind of anomaly. So let's use all sensors available to kind of figure out what the anomaly is and how to counteract it. So you will not tell him that this is a carpet, but the system will analyze this one. Okay, this is an anomaly with ID 25, and ID 25 requires this and that to counteract, and so on. So this is more like a self-learning approach.
Okay. And is that easier to program, a self-learning?
No, no, it's not easier. It's in the theory it is, but mainly research now. It's pointed how to make the best learning system, how to do that.
So is that the same idea then for all the apps that we have on our phone? Is it the same process of information and things that goes into making apps as well? Because you have to take all the information from everywhere and condense it into this small little thing, so that it has
Within
to
the
know.
machine, if you're speaking about within machine learning and how the apps works, so in these days you have lots of so-called models, which AI can use. So for example, image recognition. So recognizing what is the person, what is the dog, what is the object, and things like this. We have already trained models. So those models, in terms of training, they went through some big computers with lots of inputs, and they create this kind of dictionaries, I can call them. So certain shape is that thing, and once this is recognized and it is proven and tested, that model is kind of like compacted and then it could be delivered to a simple mobile application. Yeah? So your mobile phone doesn't have to learn and train; it is just using the model. So it's like a dictionary. So this picture, which looks like this, group of pixels is there, a group of pixels is that. So that would be the car, for example.
Oh, okay.
So you're using the trained models in the devices
Right.
to reduce the power consumption, essentially, and make it more.
And just while we're on phones, mobile phones, like the power in a mobile phone now, like the chips that are in them, like, are they getting bigger? Are they getting like mini computers in essence?
It's both things, hardware and also software. So Android evolution went through multiple stages. So very, very early Android phones was really good for developers. Well, good for developers means it's a good and bad thing. There was not as much restrictions, and developers can do and build apps whatever they imagine. The drawback of that was that the battery life of very early Android phones was, if you get a day, you are lucky. Yeah, that doesn't depend what kind of battery you have, because they were just power hungry. Now today, phone, yes, the hardware is much faster. You have multiple cores, bigger RAM, bigger storages, faster storages. But also the latest Androids, they have their sleeping cycles essentially. So what that means here that your phone snoozes now and then. Like that means almost everything is down. Only vital things like if a call comes in, if the text comes, then it kind of wakes up. And those snooze cycles are organized by the Android itself. So that would prevent your battery to be constantly draining, which can give you now, you can have a phone which has 2 days battery life, and it's easy on you. You might notice that already that today's battery is a little bit better.
Yeah.
It is because of how the latest Android OS works. Now, disadvantage for developers is that there is a very high level of abstractions and lots of restrictions in a way. So for every access, even simple like access to the camera or any sensors, mainly you need to inform user that that app requires permission to use the camera, and you can allow, and you should be able to allow or not allow to use a camera or contacts or pictures or whatever, which is good for the consumers. It's perfect for consumers, but for developers it creates a little bit more work, because we have to counteract every single choice. For example, if the app requires camera and user decides not to allow the camera, then essentially that defies the purpose of the app. So we had to decide what to do then. Use some kind of third party things like getting the pictures in somehow different, or just tell user, look, that app requires the camera, you have to enable it.
Right. Or you can't use the
Yeah.
app basically.
So yeah, regards again, maybe I'm going a bit off the track. It's combinations of hardware and mainly software. Software optimizations play a big role in today's day advancements. Yes.
And taking it from there, because I know you see a lot of people will now game on their phones
Mm-hmm.
because they're getting faster. How is the gaming industry? Do you do like much like from making your own games, and how have you seen games from what we would have played 5 or 6 years ago even to what we're seeing now developing in the gaming world, in technology wise?
Okay, so this goes again towards the hardware. I guess the hardware is progressing. We have now the phones starting. Well, most of the phones they have almost like a GPU or graphic processing unit within there, so it allows you to bit more. Yes, and it is more appealing because we have more power. There is a better optimization now. There is also frameworks like Unity, for example, which allows almost anyone to develop a game. So Unity would be the graphical engine, which runs on the computers, consoles, and also on the mobile devices. So you can use engines like this to develop whatever. So yes, people have better access to the tools to develop the games.
And is CGI used quite a lot in those games? I know we see it in films and things, but would CGI be used in a lot of those games that we see out now, the modern games?
You can say that essentially the CJ is in a way game. So the CJ, I would say, they are bringing the technology which is in the games to the movies. Yeah, because
Right.
essentially CJ is just like computer generated graphics. So it's all the things which you have in the games. You can call it CGI, yes.
Oh, okay, so there's
Yeah, so there is overlap, and yes, I can see that many times. Like the ideas, usually games was built in a way so it allows you to be somebody else again, play some role which you would not play normally in your life, and that idea was, I believe it's not confirmed, but I believe it was appealing to a movies industry. So therefore, from the beginning they were trying to already integrating it, but at that time we didn't have hardware or technology which we have now. So before, a simple graphic introductions to the movies was okay at that time. Maybe for us was brilliant, but with today's eyes and we know what there is now, it's we need more. So therefore, the I believe again it's not. It's my opinion that the CGI which you have today, it's way advanced because of all the CUDA cores and graphic processors and gaming industry also. So I believe yes, the gaming industry contributed to the movie industry also.
yeah, it's amazing because I remember George Lucas was saying when he wanted to do the sequels and prequels, he didn't. He said the technology wasn't there at the time that he wanted for his visions.
He was right. He was
Yeah.
right. Like the best kind of breakthrough, I would say, was the first Avatar. First Avatar actually showed what could be done.
That was the big one.
Yes, that was the big one. Even though actors they had these motion capture suits, they were actually acting. So every essentially actor within the Avatar would be the real, but it was, as they call it, on the green screens and things like this. So they have these dots all over the body, then facial cameras to capture the way as they move, and then that was the input for the CGI to generate the actual scenes.
Wow.
So it's
And that was what? Is that 15 years ago now?
that was the first major one, I would say. There was before also some similar, but that would be the major one, which
And kind of in Lord of the Rings and Gollum would have been the same idea, wouldn't it? He would have been CGI
yes,
for
yes,
yeah. So yeah, I can see now how the games and the film industry, because that's how they do film all the games as well. So it's
yes.
Where do you see that, in your opinion? Where do you see that going? How far can they take that?
I had the same question once actually. Uh, Now the AI and generative AI. So you could technically write a script and let the AI to generate everything for you. Now, would that be feasible? Would that be something which will have this realism aspect, like if you have actual actors? I don't know. I believe that acting would be still needed. It could be a little bit enhanced. Again, good example was the Avatar. Uh, but again, I don't. I'm even scared to kind of make the prediction what's gonna happen, because from the technology point of view, yes, you can say that actors could be replaced, but if it's actual practical or if that's gonna happen, I don't know.
Yeah, because I know that some actors have actually given permission to have their faces and their voices protected and can be used, so when they die, they can essentially, you can still make films.
Yeah, that was actually visible with one of the Terminator movie. I think not sure which one was it. When the Arnie was actually uh, fully generated. Which one was it? There was one of uh, the Terminator movie which had young Arnie walking around. Yes. So
Okay.
that could
Yeah,
be actually the thing. Yes.
that's interesting. Yeah, so there's no, I don't know, they did it in it was in Rogue One when they had like Princess Leia, who was obviously dead, and showed her younger self. So they're starting to do a lot of that stuff now.
That
Where
is
you
actually
see,
quite, yes. On the end scene, that was
yeah.
also that looked as AI generated. Yes.
So I'm just like, wow, like there's no end to it really. Like you could really just bring anyone back. So as well as the AI, like in terms of gaming, I mean, I know it's big in the films, but where do you see it going in as regards gaming? Because gaming is just going through the roof at the minute.
Now, gaming versus technology, whatever we can do. Now, for the moment, let's assume that the marketing doesn't play a role in here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying is, let's say there is no this trend that the first-person shooters or role players or multiplayers play a fact. Uh, from the technology point of view, gaming was always that role that you dive in and be somebody else. It's something that it's more like a hobby, more like a role playing, more like experience something without consequences in a way.
Yes, yeah.
Now, considering this technology which we have now here can create quite realistic views, I would say. So, what happening here with gaming comparing to the previous gaming is that early games relied heavily on a textures. So, for example, you have a simple 3D model, you're gonna wrap it up almost like with a blanket of textures. Now, the details of the textures played the realistic point of view how they looks like. You remember maybe when you played the games, it was more like stick persons running around with some nice colors onto it. Comparing to these days when the face, the lightning, even the freckles of the characters is very unique. So this is achieved by, yes, high density textures, higher pixels, higher triangles in the models, but also real things like light reflections. So now we are calculating how the light bounces from the object and how to lit certain areas. Going forward, we might be able to figure out even the movement of the skin, for example, when you are opening your mouth, which muscle stretches, how the skin responds. So I believe at some stage you will get to quite realistic approach. So you would be being able to actually see a virtual person which looks more like a real person, and that will bring quite higher immersion in the gaming. And if you have that one and combining with, let's say, AR or AR is uncommented, with virtual reality, when you actually when you could be thrown into scene and actually being as a part of the scene, that could be amazing, like amazing in a way of experience.
Yeah, like it
If
is.
you're playing a horror game, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, the Evil Dead leave a lot to be desired enough there.
yes, but from the immersion, like let's say flight simulators or driving simulators or any outdoor adventure or treasure hunting, whatever, like it could be, and I believe it would be amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
Again, considering that the trends of the game industry will go that way. I think the biggest killer is currently the story based game versus a profit generated games. For example, lots of shooters, you need to buy the items to have an upper hand or having some kind of visualization better than something which makes you unique, but requires the you pay money for it. So it kind of creates a stream of income for developers, or constant stream of incomes. But to the game like story-based game, which when it's developed, you can sell it only once, which kind of, yes, it makes no sense for developers to maybe invest big resources in the game, which will not generate money over time. That could be a problem. I'm not really happy about it because I like to play the games and do play the games. So I like to spend time, and I have to have some kind of payback in a way. Payback, I mean having a justification that the time I'm spending on it is worth.
Yes.
Like I don't have that game maybe from the first-person shooter. Well, there are some exceptions, yes, but in generally story-based game, for example, there is a few of them like Tomb Raider, Mass Effect, Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, like all those games which there is a deep message or deep story behind it. I believe it's more enjoyable than just running around and killing people.
Because you get part of the story.
Yes, you get involved in it. You get associated with the characters. It's like not just watching a very good movie, but actually being part of the movie. Like
Yeah. So this is why the likes of Fortnite and Roblox and stuff like that, you have to buy everything in Fortnite.
Yeah.
So the graphics mightn't be amazing, but you can keep buying new skins and new weapons, and it's just.
And yes, usually the story-based games, the immersion makes big difference. The music, the scenario, the story, and that takes lots of time, lots of resources.
Yeah, like a lot of the time years ago, you would have had the scenes in some of the older games where the scene would have been like cinematic, but the gameplay wouldn't be as good. It wouldn't be actual gameplay. So
Yeah, before those cinematics was almost like second thing. Like you could see the difference when there is a cinematic role, and then you're back in the game. You see something doesn't always match up. The cinematic looks nice, but when you're in the game, you can see pixels. This is all gone. All cinematics today's games, they are actually generated through the game engine. So all the cinematics that you can see in the games is actually a game itself, if that makes sense. Before there was division, there was a cinematic was actually video made, and then game was game. Now that cinematic is made through the game engine, just moving different camera points, but everything is generated.
Wow, and they're getting the games are getting better, getting more graphic as well.
Physics plays a big role now in the gaming. Being able to, through formulas and whatever calculations, display actual behavior of a texture, of a things, of the objects, water movement. That water flow was one thing which was always in the game, kind of benchmark. See if I can see water being more realistic. That was the benchmark, I remember. Now it's a common thing, like every single game has very good water physics, and that would go to the next aspects like the weather change, atmosphere change, human behavior, animals behavior, even characters, fictional characters, the way as they look, as they walk, how they respond to the terrain. It's all calculations.
And even with the PS5, I mean, the technology in the handset is phenomenal. Like when you actually play it in the Apollo room, you can draw on the bow. You can actually see it, but you can feel it in your hands. They didn't develop it for all the games, which I think is a little bit of a.
Actually, PlayStation with controllers, you're right there. It is PlayStation was always pushed a little bit further. So PlayStation controllers are, from the tech point of view, they are quite advanced. Later on are okay. Every generation has something new, like force feedback, multi-zone, haptic sensors, and yes, it's. And I felt it actually when I was playing Horizon Zero Dawn. I felt the joystick behaved a little bit different. Even the feel of the numpads, like they don't use, as far as I know, they don't use anymore standard kind of like potentiometer based controls, but they use Hall sensors. So Hall sensor, essentially there is a magnet and there is a sensor, so it measures the magnetic shifting, and that translates the movement. The advantage of that is that there is no metal parts rubbing against each other like the previous sensors. So
Right.
there is less wear and less friction. So the movement is more natural.
It's amazing. Like we just pick it up, take it for granted, play a game, put it down. But the technology and the work that goes into that.
The technology in PlayStation joysticks there, it's on different levels.
And also you're using the senses because you can see the graphics, you can see the bow being pulled, you can the sound of the bow being pulled, and now you can feel it under your thumbs.
And also triggers, yes, they're introducing the force feedback, yes. So there's
It's like they're really getting into the sensory. So I assume when you get the VAR, then you'll have that full sensory as well as the hands and the.
Depends on what brand, but yes. Mainly VR tracks your eyes, the head position, and I think that's pretty much. So there is kind of like gyroscope in the headsets, and then also the camera which tracks when your eyes are looking at. They'll be more advanced. Now I'm not sure if there is yet any force feedback, or if there is any mechanical motors within the headsets which gives you knocks and touches or something like this. Might be someday. Maybe there is already, but mainly I know that the VR is mainly kind of just gathering information rather than actually forcing feedbacking something back.
Oh, okay. It's just. And then I read somewhere, whether it's true or not, that Elon Musk, they're all looking to get implants into the brain at some stage. Like, is that where we're going to be going in 30 years' time?
Well, there is Elon Musk. There is crowds of discussions and opinions. Now, from the engineering point of view and technical point of view, I kind of was, how to say it correctly, I supported all the engineering side of him. So that means all the technology which he invented with Tesla cars kind of makes sense. All the technology what he was trying to create with the SpaceX as with the rockets makes sense. Mainly trying to have more efficient fuel, a less dangerous fuel, and reusable rockets. Yes, perfect thing. Now, regards the neural side of it, I can't remember now how the company calls. Yeah, but what he was trying to do here is trying to learn how human brain works, how the brain sends signal to things like arms, eyes, and things like this. So technically, it is all electrical impulses. That's how we are communicating. That's how nerves works. Technical impulses. So it is Neuralink. What this is trying with that Neuralink is to try to read those inputs and translate them. From the great side of a picture, it could be beneficial. For example, for prosthetic approaches. So, for example, if you lose your arm, and if you can get a prosthetic arm which can move by itself using your brain commands, yes, I think that's a great thing. But again, this is a approach to the body. It could have side effect. It could be misused. If he would say truly to his agenda, that means creating a interface between human body and a robotic side for life improvements, and for example allowing people which are blind to see, people which are deaf to hear, people which are immobile to move, yeah, that's a good thing. And I believe he's on the right track. If he gets there, how he gets there I don't know, but as an idea and movement I would say it's good.
So we're becoming cyborgs.
Yes, in a way.
In a way.
In a way, yes.
Which is fine. But then, I suppose the downside is always sides you can put, like, there's always talk of putting, like the Teslas and stuff, they have kill switches put into some of them where you can just switch off the engines or someone can switch them off. So you're always assuming the worst, that you put a plant something into somebody's head and someone can just press a button and make you kill
Yeah, that
someone.
is the side of using things, yes. So same like using atomic energy for creating weapons, so it's always there.
It's always, yeah, like it's, in theory it's a brilliant thing, but we always, somehow as humans, we always tend to use the good stuff for bad. I'm not sure if that's deliberate or it's just the way it is.
I believe it's in our human nature. You have people which are striving for the goodness, and you have people which are striving for personal gain. So
It seems to be a lot of those
yeah.
about. I know recently you bought, we're on to technology, you bought a new drone.
Yes.
How do you find the drones? Like the drones, obviously they started off a few years ago, they were tiny little things. Like, how are they now? Like, how is the power in them now? And
So my drone journey, I never thought that I'm gonna buy off-the-shelf unit. I always like to do it myself, build from the scratch, to build and understand how it works. That was always my kind of approach to things. I built 3 drones so far from the scratch. The average flight time of that drone was between 15 to 20 seconds before I crashed it. Now, saying that, with buying that drone off the shelf, to make it fly, I just have to press one button, take off, and that's it. And then I have controls that I can fly around. It has sensors which can detect the obstacle, so if I'm running towards the house, it will stop or avoid the house. Things like this. So yeah, it's
yeah, and I know there's a company in, I think, Offaly that does drone deliveries. Obviously, they're bigger drones and heavier. So, do you see a huge role? And now, obviously, we see it in the military, we see them done. But, like in civilian world, do you see a big role for drones down the road?
the drone. In the case of speaking of flying vehicles, I would say yes. Now there is always that big question mark about the efficiency. So airplanes, they have wings. So they're using the wings for the drag. That means they don't need powerful motors to keep them in the air, which means they have a longer battery span. What I'm trying to say here is the drone is almost defying gravity because it has no wing, 4 motors, and pushes the air constantly down to stay afloat. So the battery, speaking of size of the capacity, if you have the same size of the battery with the aircraft and the drone, multi-rotor, let's say, the aircraft would have, aircraft I'm calling something which has a fixed wing, will be in the air about 3 or 4 times longer than the drone. Now, the downside of the aircraft is you can't control it so precise like the drone. Drone can stop mid-air, you can even set exact altitude, it can fit in many places. So from the maneuverability and controllability, the drone is the best thing how to fly. But it requires lots of power.
Right.
So, the drone deliveries. With a drone, short distances, no problem. Long distances, a problem. Unless you use a hybrid approach where you use a wing which folds and creates the multi-rotor, then there are options like this, yes, but with the drones, it will be always down to the energy and battery management. If you add more battery, you add more weight. There is a rule of thumb with the drones that the lift of engines that generates has to be twice of the size of the weight of the drone itself. So, for example, if you are building a drone which has, let's say, it's supposed to be 10 kilos with the payload, the combined thrust of the motor should be 20 kilos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it is okay with the small machines because you can manage, but when you scale, the cost goes up quite far. Because you need bigger motors, bigger batteries, bigger structures, and it just goes and goes and goes.
Okay, so
So-
it's not the answer to our fuel shortage just yet.
Uh,
In terms of
if you can replace the battery with some like fusion reactor, maybe, but if you are there, I don't know.
because at some stage you'll think with helicopters, like a drone would be handier. It's electric, you can just whiz up and. But probably
Yeah,
not.
well, the helicopters, they are quite efficient because they're using the turbines, which, if they are designed right, they could be quite efficient. Because, yeah, with the battery, any EV vehicle which relies on the battery technology would be limited with range. And that also applies on our day-to-day cars, applies also on the drones. So you are always there. How to manage the storage of that energy is the problem.
So, talking of travel, but also going back to our science fiction and other stuff, like when we talk about things like warp drives and things like that. I mean, is that something that's feasible? Like, could that become a reality at some stage? Or a hyperdrive or going into warp?
We are very squishy objects, so any fast acceleration will kill us. So, if we can overcome that first, then the speed is not a problem. Now with the warp drive, it's slipping through some interdimensional space. Black hole, for example, is one thing which is not fully understood as far as I know, but essentially it creates almost like a tunnel between places. So, which I believe there's lots of inspiration in that. So I'm not saying it is not possible. If we are able to preserve our bodies, not to kill us while we are traveling, anything is feasible, I would say. I think the closest thing I ever seen within the science fiction was the TV show The Expanse. That was the closest, the most realistic fast space travel that I ever seen. With Expanse, they created ships in some manner that are able to essentially support us as humans. Either when you are going fast, they kind of injected a gel in your body which tightened organs, which allowed us to essentially survive longer, or the max speed was always dictated by G's that our body can withstand.
Right.
So Expanse will be the closest, I think, to feasible space travel or fast travel.
So our space travel, as we know it at the moment, is fast to get out of the atmosphere, to get us up there with the big rockets. But when you actually get into space, gravity, is there much power pushing that? Do you need much power to kind of push you along, or does do small work?
Newton's law, so I think Newton was it. I'm not sure myself in the foot now. But essentially any action, if you want to propel yourself forward, you have to expel some kind of energy. On the earth as we are, and the way as we move usually is with the cars, is that there is this physical contact with the road. So tire spins, which propels us forward. If we are in the air, the thrusters which we have, what's called thrusters currently, are pushing the air through an engine and outside. So the exhaust is actually our source of energy of the movement. On the earth, we have to combat two things. The first thing is the gravity, and second thing is the atmosphere. The air which is around us creates resistance, right? We have to overcome that. Space doesn't have neither of them. So getting from Earth to the space, we require enough energy to overcome terminal velocity. So essentially, that force that gravity holds us, we have to overcome that. But also we have to push through medium, which is air. When you're going higher and higher and higher, that is less and less a problem because then gravity is weaker and atmosphere getting thinner. So there is nothing which can stop us essentially.
Okay.
And the space is, if you're in the space and you throw a ball, that ball, when it leaves your hand, that it will be its speed until it stopped. Because there is no atmosphere and there is no gravity.
And so technically it will keep going.
Yes.
Just
Yes. So it will go till it hits something or some gravity well grabs it. Now, when you throw the ball, at the same time, you're gonna move backwards. Because that ball is almost like a propellant.
okay.
Yeah? So, what they do now, and I think they have already technology there, which is the ion drives. So, essentially, they excite the atoms, which propels them. So, yeah, it is currently still in the very small doses, but it uses as a propellant. So, in space, you don't need as much propellant as energy to move around than leaving and entering the atmosphere.
Which also makes spacewalking. You kind of realize how dangerous it is now, because if you
Yes.
if you fall,
If you don't have a tether and you push too hard, you're gone. That's why all these astronauts, whenever you see the videos from the space, when there is the astronaut is always attached to a tether. Because once if you push yourself away with the object, at that speed, you're leaving the object, you will go till you are not stopped.
It's just I don't know how they do it, because you'd always have that. Surely you'd have that little thing in your head that
Yes.
something's going to snap. Or,
Yeah.
Wow, that kind of changes. I give me a little bit more respect now than I thought. So after putting all that together and all these new advancements in technology and warp drive and stuff, how do we power this? Like, do we have enough power? Like, we know living here in Ireland that if we get a bit of wind, especially where we are, electricity's gone, and we're essentially living in a cave. Going forward, how do we keep that technology and keep progressing? And what's the answer to that, in your opinion?
That's a good question, and especially with AI and all the compute power from data centers to data storages to whatever we have. Yeah, power. So maybe start. Okay, like if you speak about terms of electronics and computers and data centers and those things, they need power because there are just too many processing units. So bare minimum, like okay, so today's CPUs are quite advanced, but they work on the simple idea of a array of transistors, and each transistor requires power to turn on and off. Well, they are not. Okay, so the transistors are a bit different in the CPUs now. They are just 1 micro levels, nanometers anyway. But they do still require power. And introducing the AI, where there is lots of computes happening, would require also processing power. So things like simple questions, hi, how are you, for example, within AI terms, every letter or character in hi, how are you has to be contextualized, put together, create some kind of context or an output that the computer can understand. So there is could be thousands operations per just that little thing, and each operation requires certain switching. So going forward, the high-end computers are expensive to run because there is too much computing happening, and that computing is based on transistors or whatever, and they require power to operate. How are we gonna provide the power? In Ireland, where we are currently, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the main source of the power which we do have here is from Either it used to be peat, I know they're trying to go away from that, but things like coal and gas and essentially fossil fuels. And that is limited and expensive in the way. So that's why I have to pay 600 euros bill every second month for the power. My opinion is going away from the solid and fossil fuels would be the answer. Now, if it's feasible, I don't know. From the place where I'm coming, our main power source is I think we have 3 atomic power plants throughout the entire country. They are built long time ago and they are still serves. So the electricity is cheap because the way as the nuclear power plant works, it uses the fusion reactions to generate the heat. That heat is then translated to a steam. Steam drives the turbines. Now, the plus side of this is that the cost of energy or cost of generating the heat is minimal. It's very little in the grand schemes. The downside of the nuclear power plant is the waste. It has to be stored somewhere. Volume-wise, it's not big, but danger-wise, it is. So they have to be, and as far as I know, again, I'm not working in nuclear power plant, but as far as I know, they have to be enclosed in some kind of radiation shield. Usually, it's the thick lead walls or some thick containers, and then buried somewhere deep down. So this is concerns in the case when if something breaks, the radiation leaks and this and that. Now radiation will decay after hundreds of years, yes, but we don't live hundreds of years. So this is only one downside. But if it's managed well, I believe could be a good also answer. With the strategical thinking, placing the power plant where it's safe, I would say it answers the other thing is using the natural resources, things like a solar, which maybe not as much where we are at the moment, but definitely other source of energy. Could be wind or even waters, waves. But in Japan, or they build experimental power plants when they install big fins within the shorelines, which rocks back and forth with the waves, and that rocking movement then is translated to the rotational movement, and then the rotational movement was driving the turbines. So there is a way to do that.
You just have to get our government thinking ahead a few years, which is probably the hard bit. Trying to convince people to look to the future instead of the now. But it's interesting. So for now, life is great, technology is great. It's just the big thing is keeping it with our power, I suppose.
We have to realize one thing, that the power demand will never decrease. It will go up and down with the technology advancement, bringing out the electric cars, which long term I think it's a good idea. Maybe now there is this limitation with the range and the danger which comes with the lithium-based batteries, but as a sustainable thing, I think it's a good thing. But also with that we have to assume that our lifestyle, our technology would require more and more power. So do we have to change the way as the power is generated? Do we have to change how the power is delivered? I guess future will show, but definitely we will need more and more power. That is my take on things and kind of like guesstimation. That's guess joined with estimations. Guesstimation.
Brilliant, no, 100%. Peter, thank you so much for that. That was fascinating. Got into a lot of topics there, and yeah, a lot of food for thought for the future. So thank you so much for coming in and sharing your knowledge with us, and best of luck in the future.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.